and Mark McAdam are with me to bring you the biggest transfer news and best analysis. And we have a packed show ahead. Coming up, Erik ten Hag is closing in on one of his summer priorities as Manchester United reach a broad agreement with Inter Milan for goalkeeper Andre Onana. Tottenham are in Perth and Ange Postecoglou has spoken to the media for the first time since holding talks with Harry Kane. Arsenal are continuing their preparations for the new season in the United States. We'll hear from Mikel Arteta on Declan Rice and his plans for the rest of the summer, and it includes further signings. And Judgment Day is coming. PSG President Nasser Al-Khelaifi will hold face-to-face talks with Kylian Mbappe tomorrow. But we start with Manchester United and their pursuit of a goalkeeper, Dharmesh. Has Erik ten Hag got his man then? What do you reckon?
Close. Very, very close. I'm hoping I don't have to say Andre Onana's name for much longer, but Manchester United, we think, now have a broad agreement. That's how it's been described to me, with Inter Milan over the signing of the goalkeeper, Andre Onana. Not finalised yet, but as I said, very, very close. I still think there's a little bit of work to do between the clubs on the actual structure of that fee. So we think the fee is going to be around 55 million euros, so 50 million euros up front, potentially 5 million in add-ons. It's how that 50 million will be paid, over how long a period it will be paid, and what those performance-related add-ons will involve. He has been a goalkeeper that has been pushed by Erik ten Hag. He played under Erik ten Hag when he was at Ajax, so he always wanted to bring him in. Personal terms, not expected to be a problem. Onana's made it clear from the get-go that he wanted to come to Manchester United, and United are remaining hopeful that a full agreement can be reached in time for Onana to play some part in their US tour. Now, Manchester United play Lyon at the Murrayfield Stadium on Wednesday. After that, they fly to their US tour. It was initially hoped that Onana would be on that flight, but it's hoped at the moment, even though there is a small hope that he can make that flight, that he will still play some sort of part in that tour. Now, there will be a fallout from the potential Onana arrival, and that is Dean Henderson. We reported earlier on in the window that Manchester United were in talks with Nottingham Forest. He was on loan at Forest, of course, last season. Had a really serious thigh injury that kept him out for a few months last season. He's not going on the US tour. He's just recovering, and he's recovering well from that thigh injury. But once Onana is signed, Manchester United will then sanction the reopening of talks with Nottingham Forest over the permanent sale of Dean Henderson. But Onana looks like it is close.
I mean, Sam, if we can bring you in, we've heard a lot about his ball-playing ability. Just how good a keeper is he?
Yeah, it feels like we skip a step, don't we, sometimes when we talk about goalkeepers nowadays. We go straight to how good they are with their feet and actually sometimes leave behind the fundamentals. But the great news for United fans is he's great at both. So that ticks every box, doesn't it, really? And there's an advanced statistic we can use to measure this now. Better than save percentage, we have PSXG, post-shot expected goals. How many goals should a goalkeeper have conceded based on the shot value that he faced over the course of the season? And Andre Onana, graded as the very best in the Champions League this season, saved 7.6 more goals than he should have, or flip it, conceded 7.6 fewer goals than he should have. That points to an exceptional shot stopper. So we've all seen him spreading the ball across, clipping those passes just over the marker's head into the path of the fullback. That's amazing. He can also do the bread and butter things, and that's why this is such a good signing.
OK, one close to joining United. Mark, if we can bring you in now and talk about Harry Maguire. Looking ahead to his next season, it could be a bit of a different question. Do you think he could leave this window?
It certainly feels like it. It's been a tough 48 hours, hasn't it, for Harry Maguire, of course, stripped of the Manchester United captaincy as well after discussions with Erik ten Hag. It came out in the media last week, which I think has been a source of frustration. But like you say, there's no question that he could leave if he wanted to depart Old Trafford. There'll be a number of sides in the Premier League that will be interested in signing Harry Maguire. The problem for Harry Maguire is, A, the wages he earns and the fact that Manchester United invested so much money in him and he still has 2 years plus an extra year on his current United contract. So therefore, financially, it's going to have to be the right deal, or although Eric Ten Hag has said it will be on his terms. We respect Harry Maguire. He's a hugely popular figure within the dressing room. The players still really value him and like him. There's no question he's got a lot to offer. You saw when he played for England just a few weeks ago in the Euro qualifiers, he didn't have a lot to do, but Gareth Southgate still picks him. He still plays at the heart of that defence, and he's still very solid and still has a lot to offer the game, no question. So it's going to be one to monitor. We know that West Ham have a passing interest in him, although when David Moyes was asked down under about it in a press conference, typical David Moyes, he batted it away, doesn't like to talk about anyone else's players. But there's a growing sense now that maybe Harry Maguire's time has come to an end at Old Trafford. The team feels like perhaps it's moved on. Harry Maguire will say, I've got a lot to prove, and with the Euros next summer, I'm going to go and play 38 Premier League games this season and prove that I am still one of the best centre-backs in this country. So it's going to be an interesting one to monitor, but I think the big factor with Harry Maguire is going to be the financial package. If any club can get close to what Manchester United want, whether it be a loan or a permanent deal.
Just picking up on what Mark said there, I think some of the seeds were sown a little bit last season when Eric Ten Hag was always asked a question about Harry Maguire's future, and Mark alluded to it there. Basically, Eric Ten Hag has always said Harry Maguire is great for Manchester United. We love having him around. He's great in the dressing room, but he also said he can't be happy with the situation that he finds himself in because of the limited game time that he
wants
had.
to play, yeah.
Exactly.
Gareth Southgate has said that he can't continue to pick him if he doesn't play. Like, it's been OK to a point, but you can't go 2 years without playing many club games at all and still expect to be in that England starting 11, especially when you've got players rising like Levi Colwill, a brilliantly talented left centre-back, which is Harry Maguire's position. That's a tough position to be in.
Who's just been in the Euro squad that's won the Under-21s Euros as well. So
magnificent, wasn't he?
Yeah, fantastic. Only 8 Premier League starts for Harry Maguire, and I think that tells you the story.
Where is the question then? Where could he go, Sam?
It's so tough, isn't it? Because you feel like where he is at the moment, playing at a Champions League club and being an England starter, he will have an idea in his mind of what level of club he should be at. And I think that he won't want to go below Europa League, Europa Conference League. He'd want to be at a club that's competing on the European stage. But I look at the Premier League and I look at all of those teams, those 7 teams, I think they look pretty booked up. And the only one that does need a left centre-back is potentially Spurs, but we're led to believe that they're looking at other targets, they're looking at other players. So does he try to do a Chris Smalling? Does he maybe go abroad? Does he open his horizons? I'd love to see it. We've seen lots of English centre-backs do that. Tomori, Smalling. Could Maguire be the next one? It often is the route for a player like this.
One interesting thing as well, I think, is we've still got a long way to go of pre-season, of the window, the start of the Premier League campaign. It takes just one injury. And then one of those managers, perhaps, that's looking at the squad thinking, I'm sorted for the left side of my centre-backs. However, suddenly, when you need to get someone in last minute, maybe deadline day, and you look at Harry Maguire, character, profile, experience, potentially a loan deal, he could be suddenly very, very popular in the last knockings of the window.
You mentioned deadline day and the last knockings of the window. I don't think Harry Maguire or Manchester United will want it to go that long. They will want some sort of clarity on his future sooner rather than later because as it stands, Manchester United are quite stocked in the central defensive positions. Now, we were told right from the outset of this window that the priorities were a striker, a midfielder, and potentially a central defender and a goalkeeper, kind of in that order. But the goalkeeper priority focus has changed a bit, that they're on the verge of bringing in Onana. The number 9 position is always one that they've been looking at. Rasmus Højlund is one. I'm told that the central defensive position, because they're so stocked in that position, they are doing due diligence on various central defenders. I think Kim Min-jae was a player that they were looking at really, really closely. He's obviously now leaving Napoli, and he won't be coming to Manchester United, going to Bayern Munich. But if Manchester United do have a departure in that position, that is when I think they'll go into the market. So they will be doing their homework just now so that if and when Harry Maguire was to leave Manchester United are ready to pounce to bring in a defender to fill that gap.
OK, another line to bring us on Manchester United. Marcus Rashford.
This is fantastic news. I'm sure Sam and Mark will talk about it as well, but this has been going on for a while, his new contract. Not signed yet, but it is very, very, very close now, we are led to believe. Manchester United, we are told, have reached an agreement in principle with Marcus Rashford over a new contract, which is for 5 years, which will take him until 2028. Remember, This time last year, he was entering the final year of his contract, but Manchester United had that option for a further 12 months. They knew they wanted to keep him, so let's trigger that 12 months to give us that breathing space so that we can really engage in talks with Marcus Rashford to try and tie him down to a new contract at Old Trafford. There has been so much interest in Marcus Rashford, unsurprisingly. Very close, if you believe everything that you heard, with Paris Saint-Germain. They were really serious about bringing Marcus Rashford in a couple of summers ago. The season before last, it wasn't working out for him. And then Eric Ten Hag comes in, 30 goals in all competitions last season. And he's earned this new contract. And it looks like it's a case of when and not if, and we should get a formal announcement on a new 5-year deal for Marcus Rashford very, very soon.
I mean, that's massive. How big a deal do you think that is for United?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, but it goes beyond tying down your best players, which is the obvious way that big clubs stay on top, not losing players. It's about keeping in touch with the soul of the club and keeping you preserved as what you are. So Man United have been able to go out this summer and they've been able to go and buy Mason Mount, and hopefully they'll be buying Andre Onana very, very soon. 2 huge upgrades. We'll improve them on the ball, we'll improve them off the ball, we'll improve key areas that they need to upgrade. But you can't make the same mistake that Chelsea have just done. The same mistake that Man United have just taken advantage of, which is allowing one of these situations to happen where your homegrown hero runs down his contract and suddenly he moves to a Premier League rival. Yes, you've got to be aggressive and you've got to upgrade your squad where you can using the European window, but you can't lose sight of what's at home. And signing up Rashford is just as important as any of the other deals that we'll talk about for United this summer.
Yeah, I mean, really, really exciting. We're going to rattle through a few other names. Dharmesh, West Ham looking for someone to replace Declan Rice.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll want to bring in at least 2, I think.
Just one?
In central midfield,
How many people will it take? Right, OK.
I mean, from the outset, we knew that there was an interest in João Palhinha at Fulham, but initial talks earlier on this transfer window indicated that there was a big gap in valuation from what West Ham were prepared to pay and what Fulham were asking for. I just wonder now whether West Ham United have got some sort of encouragement that João Palhinha may be interested in going there, simply because West Ham have gone in with a bid now. It's worth £45 million. It's been rejected out of hand by Fulham. That deal has been turned down. And we're told that Fulham are not encouraging offers for a player who they value at around £80 million. So they're quite a way off here, West Ham United, unless Fulham are saying we're going to go that high and then maybe there's a compromise to be made if they are going to do business. But they're not encouraging any kind of business with regard to João Palhinha. And why should they? He had a fantastic season last season. He's still got 4 years left on his contract and the option of a further 12 months as well. And he's not the only player West Ham United are looking at. There's an interest in the Southampton captain, James Ward-Prowse. That's been a long-standing interest as well. They like the Ajax midfielder, Edson Alvarez, the Mexico international as well. Manchester United, Scott McTominay, a long-standing interest in him as well. And we know they've been engaging in talks with Juventus over Denis Zakaria. But again, rather like Palhinha, a gap in valuation. But they are looking very, very seriously, as you'd expect them to life after Declan Rice. OK, we're going to move on, Mark. Bournemouth. You've got some news on Bournemouth for us.
Yes, they've been active in the window today. They've signed, or agreed a deal, not quite signed just yet, with AZ Alkmaar for the left-back, Milos Kerkez. Young 19-year-old, hugely exciting left-back, a player that they were monitoring in January. They were interested in signing him there, but they didn't make their interest formal. It was expected that he joined Lazio a couple of weeks ago, started his career at AC Milan, but Bournemouth have managed to get the deal done. It's a £14 million deal with £1.5 million in add-ons. He'll travel to the UK tomorrow, medical expected the following day on Wednesday, and then, of course, he'll put the finishing touches to the deal. Personal terms not expected to be a problem, but certainly a player that will fit into Antonio Rola's setup really nicely and could have a lot of potential.
And Dharmesh, final one to mention, Moises Caicedo, any update on him?
Been saying his name throughout January, saying his name throughout this summer's transfer window as well. We know that Chelsea were interested in January. We know that Arsenal went full pelt to try and sign Moises Caicedo in January as well. They made 2 bids, the latest of which was 60 million plus around £10 million in add-on, so a deal worth £70 million. Brighton said no. Moises Caicedo wanted to go. They said no, and they tied him down to a new deal. The intricacies of that deal we're not privy to, but Chelsea I think are quite hopeful that they might be able to do a deal with Brighton to sign Moises Caicedo. They're getting some sort of encouragement that the player would join. Personal terms not expected to be an issue. Gap in valuation still exists, though, because we think Brighton value Caicedo as much as West Ham valued Declan Rice. So we could be thinking about another transfer up to around £100 million.
OK, thank you very much. We've got a couple of other lines reaching us now from Chelsea. Reece James and Wesley Fofana have not travelled with the squad to the United States. James is unwell. Fofana is suffering from a knee problem. Let's take a break there then. Still to come, we hear from Mikel Arteta and discuss the potential for more incomings at Arsenal. But next, Ange Postecoglou talks Harry Kane. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Tottenham are in Australia at the moment, and Ange Postecoglou has spoken to the media for the first time since holding talks with Harry Kane. This is what he had to say.
There are a lot of people who know Harry better than me, but he's not going to get fazed by anything. He's here, and while he's here, he's totally committed to what we're doing, and that's the way I've seen things. In terms of me, it has zero impact on me. If other people, other clubs want to talk about our contracted players, that's more of an issue for them than us. Some will be on for the whole journey, others won't. But a lot of that sort of gets decided along the way. It's not something that I'm sitting down and, demanding from people right at the outset. The reality of it is, we've got a month or so before the season starts, a bit less actually, and transfer window's still open for a while, so we'll see how it all transpires.
OK, Mark, we're going to start with you. A difficult position for Postecoglou, do you think, given the comments that have been coming out of Germany?
He looks unfazed, doesn't he? He looks like he takes everything in his stride. He'll be used to this kind of speculation. He had it at Celtic with a number of his high-profile players, and he's going to have it for probably a long chunk of this summer window as well. And it feels almost normal that we have a transfer window where we at least mention Harry Kane at some stage. But this one is going back and forth at the moment, and there's a lot of noise coming out of Bayern Munich and Germany about their intentions and their desire to sign Harry Kane. The thing that rings through my head is, first of all, if they're making these intentions known very publicly, this is either a vehicle to either smoke out another player, to tell their fans a real message that we want to sign one of the greatest strikers in the world, or they've been given an indication that actually Harry Kane is interested in going to Bayern Munich. Ange Postecoglou has met Harry. They've had a conversation. I think the fact that Harry Kane is down under with the Spurs squad on a pre-season tour tells you where we are at with the transfer. It's not imminent. It's not close. There's no sign of him heading over to Munich for a medical. Obviously, we know that Daniel Levy met the CEO for Bayern Munich, Jan Christian Driesen, and the President, Uli Hoeneß, has also been speaking, and I think this is probably the most telling of all the quotes that's come out with regards to Harry Kane's future. He said, Harry Kane has clearly signalled in all conversations that his decision stands. And if he keeps to his word, then we'll get him, because then Tottenham will have to buckle. Now, that's what Uli Hoeneß said to Sports 1 publication in Germany. So, again, more publicity, more noise in the media, but it certainly feels like this will rumble on for some time. And ultimately, whilst Tottenham don't want to sell Harry Kane, everyone has a price. Now, if Bayern Munich can get close to perhaps just say £100 million guaranteed, I think Daniel Levy will have a very tricky situation on his hands where we have to make that decision. Do I sell the greatest player that Tottenham has ever had?
Big words, weren't they?
Look, Mark covered a lot of it there, but are Bayern Munich getting that encouragement from Harry Kane's camp that, yes, he has and he is open to coming? The information that we're getting is that Tottenham have open dialogue with Bayern Munich and that Harry Kane is looking at all avenues that are available to him. Now, one avenue we're told that is not available to him is moving to another Premier League club. We understand that Tottenham Hotspur will not sell to another Premier League club. Now, if they are keeping the dialogue open with Bayern Munich, it would suggest that if a deal can be agreed, they could be open to selling Harry Kane, simply because if they sell to Bayern Munich, one, of course, they're not selling to a Premier League club, but they eliminate the prospect of him going for free to a Premier League club next summer. The issue they're going to have is very different to a couple of summers ago when it got a little bit bitter between Harry Kane and Tottenham. He didn't turn up to training. There was the link with Manchester City, who wanted to sign him. But Tottenham really were in huge control of that situation because he still had 3 years left on his contract. Tottenham are still in control of this situation because he is still under contract, but he's entered the final year of that deal. Now, come 11 o'clock in the evening on September the 1st, if Harry Kane is still a Tottenham Hotspur player and he hasn't signed a new contract at the club, then it's last roll of the dice time. They are then going to be hoping somehow that Ange Postecoglou can convince Harry Kane, the board can convince Harry Kane that this is going to be our recruitment, this is how I'm going to play, we're going to win trophies, for him to still be able to sign a contract in that 1 year that he's got left. But to go into that final year is always going to be a risk, because you are then 3 or 4 months away from signing a pre-contract agreement with a foreign club, and then 6 further months away from being able to go anywhere you like for no money at all. And that brings in the prospect of a Premier League move.
Sam, what do you make of it all?
Well, look, I mean, what can Tottenham do over the course of the next season to convince Harry Kane that this is the place for him for the following 3 or 4 years? Is there anything that they can do? Is there a project they can put in place? What can they achieve this season to make themselves more attractive for the next 3 or 4 years of Harry Kane's career, and possibly his last 3 or 4 years at the top level, more attractive than Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or Barcelona or Man United or Chelsea, who will all come to the table next summer when he would be available on a free transfer? I don't believe that Tottenham can put anything together that can genuinely convince him to then sign on again when he's open to everybody. So then the question is, well, why wouldn't you take the money? But recently I've been watching West Ham try and wade through this midfielder market in the wake of the Declan Rice deal. Turns out replacing a star player isn't easy. Even if you've got buckets of cash to do so, the prices go up, the expectation goes up. Joao Palhinha's suddenly 80 million rather than 60. I do feel for Levy a bit here, because he probably knows that even if he sells Harry Kane for 80, 90, 100 million, can't replace him, or he'll be held as a hostage in negotiations for any striker that they then try and replace him with. It's a very difficult position, and it all comes back to you can't let yourself get into this position in the first place.
Sam, would it be safe to say as well, Bayern Munich and their board are under a little bit of pressure?
100%, yeah, 100%. They did not have a good season. They got bailed out by Dortmund on the final day. Their streak of Bundesliga titles nearly came to an end. Dortmund did a Dortmund, so they were OK. But half the board ended up resigning or being sacked off the back of that, didn't they? Oliver Kahn went, a few others went. Hassan Salihamidzic was the sporting director, the man responsible for bringing in Sadio Mane on that huge deal. He left as well. They barely celebrated that title because the expectations at Bayern are different. So if Bayern Munich's board are thinking, we need to really ramp it up here, we need to put in some big bids for some big players, because they tried it with Declan Rice as well before they got to Harry Kane, maybe there's a bit of posturing involved. Maybe they want to look ambitious. It's very hard to read, isn't it?
The difference with this one and Declan Rice, though, is some of the quotes that Mark came up with.
Oh, this is,
there.
yeah.
I mean, they've been so open about, well, Harry Kane's given us his word, and if he's true to his word, well, we've got him.
Yeah.
I mean, they are big words. So, and you're not hearing any kind of pushback from the Tottenham side, and not hearing any kind of comment from the Tottenham side, aside of the fact that we don't think they've got any intention to sell. They're not saying Harry Kane is 100% guaranteed going to be a Tottenham player next season. And that's why I think it's this 1 year left on his contract that is the big issue that's hanging over Tottenham just now, and Harry Kane. And the longer it goes, the more cards fall into Harry Kane's lap. But I think what does need to happen for Tottenham, for Ange Postecoglou, is clarity one way or another as early in this transfer window as possible. This can't go into the final week because you're talking about how difficult it is to replace star players.
Yeah.
It's difficult to replace star players with 7 weeks or 6 or 7 weeks of the transfer window to go. If you're going into the final week, imagine you're a selling club who are selling a striker to Tottenham Hotspur in the final week of a transfer window, and they've just got 80, 90, 100 million pounds for Harry Kane. They'll just push the price up.
Say that's the price. Give it straight to us.
Exactly. Exactly.
We'll also have more of these press conferences where Postecoglou's asked about Kane. Oh, here we go. First question, third question, second question. We're going to move on to another striker now. Romelu Lukaku. Tell us what you know about that.
Yeah, we think now that Chelsea have got 2 serious bidders for the Chelsea striker, Romelu Lukaku. He wanted to go to Inter Milan. Inter Milan wanted him, but it seems now that Inter Milan have now moved on to other targets because they've decided not to pursue Romelu Lukaku. And I think there's a little bit of bitterness involved there because I think Inter feel Romelu Lukaku didn't come back to them. He wasn't talking to any of their teammates, and they just thought, right, we're hearing that they might be talking to Juventus. We're out now. And we think those 2 bidders are Juventus and Al Hilal from Saudi Arabia. Surprise, surprise. Juventus have held talks, and we're told that they're prepared to pay around 40 million euros, including add-ons, for Romelu Lukaku. Probably a bit less than what Al Hilal are prepared to pay, but potentially a deal that Chelsea would do. However, Juventus would first need to sell before they would be able to fund a move for Romelu Lukaku, and that sale would probably come in the form of Dusan Vlahovic. They would need to try and generate money from a sale of Vlahovic if they were to go into the market to try and get Romelu Lukaku. Lukaku is not expected to go on Chelsea's pre-season tour of the US while he tries to sort out his future. But a few weeks ago, with these two clubs that we're talking about in Al Hilal and Juventus, it was thought that Saudi Arabia wasn't an option for Lukaku just now. He wanted to remain in European football. But with the options that he's got dwindling, it's going to be a decision that he's going to have to make, provided someone can come in and make an acceptable offer to Chelsea. Because remember, we're talking about a guy that cost Chelsea the thick end of £90 million. They're going to want to recoup as much as they can for him.
Sam, it feels like we've not seen much of Lukaku over the last couple of years. I mean, what kind of impact do you think he's made in Italy?
It's been, 2 years since we've seen peak Lukaku. Just before Chelsea bought him, he looked exceptional. So that season with Inter, where they won the title under Conte, his partnership with Lautaro Martinez, they were fantastic. What a strike partnership. Big man, little man, running the channels, floating around. Like they shared the goals. Their relationship on the pitch was amazing. And then he joined Chelsea. It didn't go great. Obviously, injuries were a concern, and there were some stylistic issues with Thomas Tuchel. Goes back on loan to Inter. He finds himself playing second fiddle to Edin Dzeko. And that's partially because of injuries again. So the story of his last 2 years, unfortunately, has been injuries preventing him from gaining steam. And Lukaku might just be the most prime example of a player who, when he's not 100% fit, his level drops quite significantly. When he's on it, goodness me, he's one of the best in the world. But when he's not quite there, there's a big drop-off. And it can't be helped. But if he can't get fit, he can't show us his best level. And as the age creeps up, I understand why clubs are a little bit more reluctant to sink a big fee on him and presumably some big wages too. So for Lukaku, he needs a redemption season from somewhere. I just don't know where it's going to be.
OK, thank you very much. Right, on the way, Declan Rice trains with Arsenal in the United States and Mikel Arteta hints at more signings. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Declan Rice is with his new Arsenal teammates in Washington as they prepare for the new season. And Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta has been talking about the club's new record signing and the possibility of further signings.
I think every signing that we've made brings a very special things to the team. Obviously, Declan is very much known in the league and he's done tremendously well both for West Ham and the England national team. And it's a team that's going to bring a lot of qualities, a lot of leadership, a lot of experience in the league, very specific in the position with the qualities that he has. So we are delighted to have him. You all know his leadership, his personality, the experience that he already have at 24, and very smooth. I think he's already very close with a few of the boys. Obviously, he knew a few of the boys from the England camp as well, and he seems very happy. It's a lot of time is still in the market, and a lot of expectations are in some of our players as well. So we'll have to see and how things develop in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be alert. There's still time to do things. There's still time as well for exit, obviously. So I'm sure things will move.
Right, OK, Dharmesh, if Arsenal are back in the market, who else do you think they could be in for?
Yeah, I've just been told to just keep an eye on the attacking side of the pitch, and particularly on the right side as well. You remember a couple of summers ago they tried to sign Rafinha. He ended up going to Barcelona. They're also interested in Moussa Diaby from Bayer Leverkusen, who I know Aston Villa have made a bid for and have had a bid rejected for as well. So that may be an area just to keep an eye on. It would require, I think, now a few departures and money to be recouped, because after Havertz, Rice and Timber, they've gone through £200 million in this transfer window already. And also keep an eye on another midfielder, because Thomas Partey is 30 years old. He's got 2 years left on his contract. And there is a lot of interest in Thomas Partey. Now, if Arsenal were to receive an offer that maybe they thought we cannot refuse this, and Partey was open to leaving the club, then I think Arsenal may look in that position as well. It has to be said, big clubs like Arsenal will be doing due diligence on all sorts of players in all sorts of positions, in case you have a scenario where one of their players does leave and they need to fill that gap. So just those two positions may be worth keeping an eye on.
I mean, you mentioned Partey, but I mean, who do you think could leave this summer?
Well, there are a number, but the big one that could generate the most amount of money is the striker Folarin Balogun. Now, we mentioned before that Inter Milan were after Romelu Lukaku. They're not interested in Romelu Lukaku anymore. It seems they're exploring seriously a deal to sign the Arsenal striker Folarin Balogun. Now, Inter, because they pulled out of that deal for Lukaku, will probably think that they can do a deal for around the same amount of money, which probably won't be enough for Arsenal, because we think Arsenal value Folarin Balogun at around £50 million. No formal offers as yet, and Balogun is part of the squad that flew out to the United States for their pre-season tour yesterday. Manager Mikel Arteta has been speaking about him in his last couple of press conferences, and he says we will see what happens when he was asked about Balogun's future. But the reason that they're valuing him at £50 million, if you look at what happened last season, he went on loan for the season to Reims in Ligue 1. 21 goals in Ligue 1. So he was prolific in that season. And then you've got a situation where he went from Reims and he went to the Gold Cup with the United States, scored for them as well. And in between the Gold Cup and him flying out to the US tour, he went for individual training with a coach by the name of Saul Isaacson-Hurst. And we managed to get an interview with Saul Isaacson-Hurst, who talked about Folarin Balogun. And this is what he said about Balogun's qualities.
For me, he's one of the most exciting young number 9s in world football at the moment. You look at it, there's not like an abundance of young number 9s floating around the national market. That's why there is going to be lots of interest in Flo, whether he stays at Arsenal or goes somewhere else. There's not that many young number 9s scoring goals, around the big leagues in Europe. So, yeah, of course, he's got the potential to go all the way. And like I said, it's his mentality as well. I mean, that's the difference a lot of these players have. A lot of players have this talent, but not many have the mentality to suit. To give an example, he was obviously went to USA after the season ended with France to do the camp, played in the Gold Cup, wherever that was in America, had about a week off and then came straight back to do work with me, rather than take another week off. He just wanted to carry on back and get straight back into it and get programmed into the next season. That shows the mentality about that hunger and that desire to to want to get better. And that's, I think, going to be the difference between him and some of his peers, because one, his desire to be the best, two, his desire to play and kick on and, make a real name for himself in the game.
Right, OK, Sam, I mean, you would have seen him play in France. How good do you think he is?
Wow, bring me in after the coach. Huh? What that guy said. Look, he's great. He's lightning quick and he's a great finisher. He has great instincts. He gets his shots away. He's got great ball striking, which is absolutely massive. It means you're a consistent finisher if you can strike the ball well over and over again. We just watched him finishing off both feet, which is always a bonus. Love a striker that can finish off both feet, gives you an extra angle, means you're much more difficult to show onto a weaker side or shut down. I can see why teams like him. I mean, I wouldn't pay 50 million for him. I know he's just scored 21 goals, but this is the striker market we're in, right? It's a bit mad. OK, I mean, he's in the United States, but there are others who've not travelled to the States and are still training here in London.
Yeah, a number of players that haven't travelled with Arsenal that potentially could be heading out of the exit door at the Emirates. Nicolas Pepe, of course, who was, up until just a few days ago, the club record signing. There's obviously going to be a little bit of interest in him, but whether Arsenal could generate the type of cash they'd like from the 70+ million they spent on him is very unlikely. Albert Sambi Lokonga, another player not on the tour. Neither is Cedric Suarez or Nuno Tavares. So 4 players there that potentially could be heading out. But one thing we know is whilst Arsenal still want to strengthen, they'll be looking at trying to recoup a large chunk of that 200+ million that they've spent in this window so far. OK, a few other names. Damesh, we're going to come to you now. Wilfried Zaha, his contract has expired at Crystal Palace. Yep. Now a free agent. Do you think he's any closer to deciding where he's going to go next?
Late on in the season, you remember he got a quite serious hamstring injury, so he didn't play in the last couple of games. He's continuing his rehab, actually, at Crystal Palace's training ground. And he still hasn't made a decision on his future. He's still assessing all of his options. There are talks that are ongoing with the Turkish club Fenerbahce, and there is still a 4-year deal on the table from Crystal Palace. Now, one source has told Sky Sports News that the offer from Al Ettifaq, the team that is managed by Steven Gerrard, there was a big money offer from them to Wilfried Zaha. For now, it's off the table because both parties couldn't agree on a deal. But it's clear that he wants to assess everything, and rightly so, because he's in his 30s now. This could be the last big contract that he signs, and also he wants to do it for footballing reasons, but also for his family reasons as well. So a few options on the table for Wilfried Zaha. He's going to think long and hard before making that final decision.
I'm surprised he's still on the market, to be honest with you. We've kind of known that he'd be heading to what you would call free agency for a while. We all know that he'd test the waters. We're in mid-July now. Is it the hamstring injury that's meant that he's still there right now and ready to be grabbed?
I don't think that's scuppering any kind of move at the moment. There are offers on the table. Lazio were interested as well, and that would have satisfied Wilfried Zaha's need for Champions League football for next season. But it's not just about football, this decision. There are finances involved and family involved as well. And like you mentioned before, you're talking about Harry Kane, a big contract. Could be his last big contract. You could say the same about Zaha.
Make that decision wisely, huh?
Yeah.
A lot to think about. OK, Mark, we're going to ask you about Bristol City. Alex Scott, a wanted man?
Yeah, wanted man. I was lucky enough to watch him a number of times whilst I was on Soccer Saturday duty last season. No question, one of the standout performers in the Championship, particularly in midfield. Only 19 years old. There was a lot of interest in him in January, and there was a couple of tentative offers from clubs, but he decided, along with his family, the right thing for him was to stay at Bristol City, continue his development where he was in the squad, he was playing games, and just continue that journey that he was on. I think there perhaps hasn't been as much interest in him this summer as was expected, but we know that Wolves have had a second offer turned down in the region of £20 million. We know that Bournemouth had an offer rejected last week, which was 15 plus add-ons. So you can sort of make your mind up as to what that might have been based on those offers that have been rejected. And with both clubs expecting maybe to come back to the table with further offers, we think that there could be some movement in the next 24, 48 hours on this one. No question about his ability and talent. Played as a 6, probably better as an 8, someone a little bit further up the pitch. But one of those players that will be interesting a lot of clubs But it's just about going to the right place, because there's no point in going to a top 6 side and sitting on the bench. He needs to continue his development. He needs to go to a side where he's going to play week in, week out, get the right type of coaching and push on as a footballer. And I think that will be a big factor in his and his family's decision as to where he goes.
OK, thank you very much. Coming up now in our final 15 minutes, news on Willian. We've got news on Callum Hudson-Odoi, plus Lionel Messi and Gundogan get used to life at their new clubs. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Lionel Messi will be playing in the MLS next season for David Beckham's Inter Miami. The 7-time Ballon d'Or winner was officially unveiled at the club stadium in Florida. A crowd of around 20,000 was in attendance to welcome Messi to Inter Miami. The 36-year-old has joined the club on a deal that runs until the end of 2025. Club co-owner Beckham gave Messi a warm welcome too. Well, Gundogan has today been unveiled as a Barcelona player. His Man City contract expired at the end of the season. Gundogan has joined on a 2-year contract and has a buyout clause of €400 million. Gundogan captained City to a treble last season. He said Guardiola was sad about his departure, but happy to see him join Barcelona. Well, Sam, are you excited to see him play under Xavi?
Well, I'm sad that I don't get to watch him every single week in the Premier League anymore because İlkay Gündoğan is absolutely amazing, right? I think he's one of the very best midfielders in the world, and anybody that can play that many different positions within a midfield and that many different roles, you know, as the deepest player receiving the ball off the defenders, as a more of a box-to-box presence as an 8, as someone who gets into the box and scores very timely and very important goals. There just aren't many like him. So Barcelona have got a wonderful player. I'll still watch him at Barcelona, but I won't get to see him quite as often.
OK, we've got a few other names we're going to rattle through now. Dharmesh, I'm going to start with you. Willian and Callum Hudson-Odoi, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so Willian had a one-year contract at Fulham. It expired at the end of last month, so he was a free agent. Fulham were interested in taking him back. Nottingham Forest were interested as well. And guess what? Saudi Arabian clubs were interested too. But it looks like he is going to be making a return to Fulham. That deal is now close. He's been at Fulham's training ground today, finalising the paperwork and doing some medical checks ahead of signing a one-year contract. I don't think the medical is going to have to be that stringent, given he only left the club a few weeks before. A formal announcement of that move is expected very, very soon. Now, you remember over the weekend we reported that Fulham had a bid for the Chelsea winger, Callum Hudson-Odoi, rejected. Now, Williams' potential arrival could have an impact on whether Fulham go back in for Callum Hudson-Odoi. We're told that they're still deciding whether they're going to go back in with an improved offer or not, or move into strengthening other areas of the pitch. But the interest in Hudson-Odoi is still there. It's just whether Williams' arrival has impacted on it. OK, Mark, Nascimento, what can you tell us about him?
Moises Nascimento, Forest, currently in talks with Botafogo over the 19-year-old Brazil under-20 international. A source close to us is telling us the deal is close. There's a £15 million value on the player's head. He's also been courting the interest from Sporting and Madrid as well. But it's Nottingham Forest that are currently in talks with the club. So that is one to keep an eye on.
OK, we've got another name to put to you now. We think you've got more Milos Kerkez. What can you tell us?
Yeah, this is the news that we brought you in the last couple of hours on Sky Sports News, that Andoni Iraola is close to his second signing of the window as Bournemouth agree a deal with AZ Alkmaar for the left-back. I know a lot of Bournemouth fans have been getting in touch and they want to know about their new signing. He's travelling into the UK tomorrow, medical on Wednesday. If you look at the way that Andoni Iraola set up his side when he was the Rayo Vallecano manager, the fullbacks were a key part of what he did. And to say that Milos Kerkez is an explosive, pacey, attack-minded fullback is exactly what he is. He wants to get forward. His best work is done in the final third, despite being a defender. Very offensively minded. He'll pose a constant threat down that left-hand side. He's quick, he's powerful, he's good at running with the ball as well. He's very direct. He's got the ability to get in field, underlap, overlap as well, the winger, and that's something that Bournemouth really want to do in terms of their sort of philosophy and DNA. He's got great crossing ability. He's only 5'8", 5'9", so he's quite small, but he'll bring so much to that left-hand side. But he fits perfectly the profile that Andoni wants for his fullbacks, and I think that could be a really exciting signing.
He sounds exactly like Andoni Iraola as a player. That is the player that he was. I've not seen much Milos Kerkez, but I watched Iraola for Athletic Club Bilbao, and you've just described him. So the manager has recruited another version of himself.
Another player that you rate really highly, Moussa Diaby.
Yes.
Villa interested? Tell us your thoughts.
Moussa Diaby, I mean, they need speed in attack. And they need, I think, arguably an upgrade on that right-hand side. Leon Bailey's been a little bit inconsistent and quite injury-prone, so it's been quite difficult to rely on. They've got European football to come, so they need to bulk out that squad. They basically got through that entire last stretch of last season with about 14 players, so definitely need to raise those numbers. And Diaby, I mean, he's a Champions League standard player, as far as I'm concerned. Super quick, great ball striker, great goal scorer, really creative. I love the deal if it happens, for sure.
Just one other line to bring you. It's news of a done deal, and it is for, for Sheffield United. It's a player that Liverpool fans might be familiar with because he was on their books, actually. Yasser Larouci. They've signed him on loan from Troyes. It's on loan until the end of next season with the option to make that deal a permanent one. So he's a French under-21 international, Yasser Larouci, on his way from Troyes to newly promoted Sheffield United. OK, thank you all so much for all your thoughts. Plenty more transfer news to come, of course, thanks to our guests. And on the way in the next hour, we've got build-up to the Ashes, we've got build-up to the Open, so plenty more to come right here on Sky Sports News.